What happened that night in November 1539 was never recorded in any document that survives. Palace records note the wedding ceremony, the gifts exchange, the celebrations that continued for days afterward. They do not describe what occurred between Miriam Sultan and Rustam Pasha when the witnesses finally left and the doors finally closed. We can only infer from what came after, and what came after tells us everything we need to know about the gap between theory and practice, between the legal protections Ottoman princesses possessed and the reality they actually lived. Within a year of the marriage, palace physicians were treating Miriam for what sources describe as a rheumatoid condition, chronic pain in her joints that would afflict her for the rest of her life. Modern historians examining these records suggest the illness may have been psychosomatic, the body manifesting what the mind was forbidden to express. She gave birth to a daughter, As Humasa, in 1541, and at least one son whose name is preserved in genealogies. She fulfilled her dynastic duty. She did what was expected of her. But scattered through palace records and diplomatic correspondence are hints of a marriage that was something other than happy. Rustam Pasha was jealous, a trait noted by multiple contemporary observers. Years into the marriage, one of Miriam's personal physicians would be attacked by Rustam, who suspected the doctor had formed an inappropriate attachment to his wife. The incident was significant enough to be recorded but vague enough that we cannot know exactly what occurred or why. We know that Miriam spent long periods in her own palace, separate from her husband, exercising the privilege of royal women to maintain independent households. We know that she never spoke publicly about her marriage in any of her surviving correspondence. We know that after Rustam's death from hydrocephalus on July 10, 1561, she chose never to remarry despite being only 39 years old and receiving offers from powerful men, including Simi's Ali Pasha, who had succeeded Rustam as Grand Vizier. These are not the details of a joyful partnership. These are glimpses of a woman who had learned to survive within constraints she could not escape, who had found ways to claim power within a system designed to prevent her from exercising autonomous will. And the power she claimed was real and substantial. After Rustam's death, Miriam returned to Topkapi Palace and became her aging father's closest advisor. This was unusual. The role of chief advisor to the Sultan typically belonged to the valid Sultan, the Sultan's mother, but Suleiman's mother had died decades earlier and Miriam effectively assumed the position. She accompanied her father on military campaigns, a practice almost unheard of for women in Ottoman culture. She corresponded with foreign monarchs, including Catherine de' Medici and Elizabeth I of England, conducting diplomacy that had real consequences for Ottoman foreign policy. When Suleiman died in 1566 and Miriam's brother Selim II became Sultan, she continued as his advisor. She loaned him 50,000 gold coins when he needed funds, a massive sum that demonstrated both her wealth and her willingness to use it for political purposes. She spoke on behalf of foreign ambassadors who needed access to the Sultan. She influenced appointments to high office. She became by any measure one of the most powerful people in the empire, more influential than most male officials could ever hope to be. She commissioned two mosques in Istanbul, both designed by the legendary architect Sinan, architectural masterpieces that still stand today as monuments to her wealth, piety, and refined aesthetic judgment. The Miriam Sultan Mosque in Üsküdar and the Miriam Sultan Mosque in Edirne are considered among Sinan's finest works, structures of breathtaking beauty that manipulate light and space in ways that still astonish modern architects. She patronized scholars, poets, and artists. Her daily stipend in 1575 was 600 aspers, a fortune by any standard. She used her inherited wealth, which was immense because Rustam had died as one of the richest men in Ottoman history, to fund public works that benefited thousands of people. She built a caravanserai, a public bath, a school, and a hospital. She established charitable foundations that continued operating long after her death. If you're starting to feel like this channel matters, like these untold stories deserve to be heard, please take a second to subscribe. History is full of complexity that gets erased by simple narratives, and your support helps bring these real stories to light. Thank you for being here. By the time Miriam Sultan died on January 25, 1578, she had lived 56 years and wielded more practical power than the vast majority of men in the empire ever would. Her funeral was attended by thousands. She was buried not in one of the mosques she had built, but in the mausoleum of her father Suleiman, a final assertion that her primary identity was as imperial daughter rather than as wife or widow. Her legacy as one of the most influential women in Ottoman history was secure, and yet every single element of that power existed only because she had perfectly mastered the system that had controlled her since birth.